You know, when I started this series, I thought it would be cool to illustrate Terraria's mobs. I would like to see what they would look like in real life. It's nice to see them in a realistic setting, mainly because of their ridiculous sizes. All is well until today. I just had to illustrate some Terraria mobs that I find interesting. But that interest slowly turned to horror, and I realized this isn't such a good idea after all. I am jpallgraphic, and this is Illustrating Terraria Mobs Part 4. The mobs that will be illustrated in today's video are the Corruption and Crimson Bunnies. At the same time, we will be showcasing their sizes just to see how big they really are in real life. Again, the objective is to illustrate some realistic Terraria mobs. Illustrating the bunnies involves a series of steps that ensure a smooth process. To start off, we have 1. Sketching. I sketch the bunnies and their forms, basically copying the form of the reference. We have the corrupt bunny on the left side and the crimson bunny on the right. 2. Grayscale. I filled in the forms of the sketch in grayscale, starting off with one color, then slowly adding features to the rest of the form in different values, like the eyes, nose, mouth, and body. With their basic form's shape, I began to further illustrate the corrupt bunny, incorporating 3. Details. This begins with adding a fluffy coat on the creature. Unlike regular bunnies, I don't suggest petting them because they seem pretty hostile. Can you even pet bunnies? I don't know, I've never really petted one before. 2 brushes help me incorporate the fluff into the bunny, which I think for the detail that it has, conveys the fluffy texture pretty well. But I think there's way too much of it. Maybe the bunny needs to show some skin. And with the basic details of the corrupt bunny complete, it's time for the vicious bunny. Now if you look at its sprite, in comparison with the corrupt bunny, it seems like the lower portion of the mouth is cut off. Furthermore, there's these bright pixels going through the length of the top portion. Assumption: teeth. This is where things got interesting, or horrifying depending on who you are. I felt both. So I added the teeth, and just like the corrupted bunny, I wanted to go for the fangy, long spiky teeth on the top. As I was doing that, I thought, this guy doesn't have a jaw or lower mouth. Would it be alright that it was bleeding from its orifice? I shouldn't have done that. Oh, and I also added this gap on the bunny's back, and another one on its belly. Bleeding. Oh, and it seems like the eyes have changed as well. What I can assume from these 4 pixels is an oversized pupilless eyeball with blood coming out of it. And if that wasn't enough, I ripped the part open on the bunny's head and extended this laceration to the back. This is really something. I looked at this and I thought, if I illustrate this with all of the colors, blood, and grossness, well then I'm not ready for what comes next. 4. Color. Even with just their base colors, they already match their evil biome pretty well. But of course, we can't just leave it like this. So with 5 details, again, first focusing on the corrupt bunny, I started adding color variations to the fur, colored the skin to be skin colored. Oh, I also added this laceration, which I swiftly removed because it was quite disturbing. Sure. Then I incorporated some of these saturated blobs of paint inspired by my Eater of Souls illustration. I guess they are like the sources of the infection on the corrupt bunny or something like that. Since these creatures are born when regular Terraria bunnies are corrupted under the effects of the blood moon, I could imagine these more saturated spots as the starting points of the infection. I continued detailing the rest of the corrupt bunny's form, like the eyes, the legs and paws, which should have some sharp nails, or claws. It's an intimidation factor, or a pain for these bunnies. At the same time, I incorporated 6 shadows and lighting. Realism requires some lighting. I just copy-pasted the lighting of the reference into the illustration. There's not much to say other than that, so enjoy this lighting and shadows montage. Anyway, I colored the rabbit's mouth and added some mouth features to almost complete our corrupted mammal. Refinements and extra details will be added later because we have to deal with a vicious bunny. But before we continue with the illustrations, how big would these mobs be in real life? Because it's a common theme in certain games that certain creatures may be oversized. Well, after some arbitrary calculations regarding a process which I've mentioned way too many times before, the height of these bunnies, which includes these bunnies, is about 2'3", with a length of approximately 3'3", and its ears are around 1 foot. Wait, what is the largest bunny? Perhaps it isn't too unrealistic, so it seems like our Terraria bunnies are giants. Kinda nullifies the bunny part of their name, they might as well be just called rabbits. But anyway, they would be one, if not the largest rabbit species in real life. A short view of a 2D size comparison would suffice that. Now, I just want to say that the first rendition of this illustration genuinely made me very concerned about my own sanity. I felt like it was a bit too much, and it's generally something that I would not really illustrate. There's just way too much bleeding involved. So I removed the belly and back openings and left the mouth to be the main nightmare fuel. As I continued, I colored it authentic to the sprite and made it look even worse. What am I talking about? Well, here's the thing. Initially, I wanted the vicious bunny to be fluffy, just like the corrupt bunny. But by looking at the sprite, and a suggestion from a Discord test mod in our server, link in the description, it seems like the bunny has less fluff and more flesh. And I thought, would it be cool if the vicious bunny was just muscle? And so it is. Before tracing the muscle outlines, I had to gradually reduce the volume of the bunny's form. Basically, most of the bunny is comprised of fur. And with a bit of a snap, the fluff is gone. That snap indicates that I completely forgot to record the part where I traced the bunny's muscles. So yay me, good job. I started incorporating some features like these whitish areas on the knees and back. Now, references for bunny muscles were limited, and I couldn't really get a good representation of the bunny's chest muscles. So, the next best option? Tumors. Growths. Whatever these things are. These things aren't in the sprite though. Well, it's my illustration. Get over it. I covered certain parts of the bunny with them, especially the front part for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And yes, I was coping for my skill issues. Anyway, this muscle saga took a while, and in the middle of this, I added 6 shadows and lighting. I won't mention much about this part except it will follow the same lighting as the corrupt bunny. To be honest, looking at the muscles of a bunny was pretty cool. Of course, it's no human muscle, but I thought these were wing muscles. So I continued adding more features to the bunny to amplify its viciousness. I think at this point I am committed to turning it as horrifying as possible. And when I said earlier that the bleeding was a bit too much, I decided to amp it up once again by adding another bloody opening on the top of its head and a gash on the bottom of this growth. I am never making something like this ever again. By using 5 and 6, I transform an eerie, horrifying creature into a similar, equally horrifying creature, just with more detail and abnormal cell division. And after all of that work, we ended with 7 refinements and additions. And there we have it. This illustration showcases what Terraria's Bloodborne bunnies would look like in real life. One side, the corrupt bunny, a foul, feral corrupted beast with the intent of slaying in red, and on the other, the vicious bunny, an absolutely gross looking creature that I will try to forget. If you want to see me measure the sizes and illustrate Terraria's mobs, click this video over here or this playlist over here.